Hi guys. Hey, we're going to do an input chart today on Greece. It's sports day, so I'm representing my Mariners here. Missing my Mariners a lot during this time. What are you missing? Well, we're not going to miss out on the four government forms that Greece went through. And I know that you read about that this week. Hopefully this will just lay out some comparisons and some contrasts, some pros and cons to each type of government. We're also going to talk about how each government came into play and how each government could be overthrown. All right? So these are forms of governments. I've got my pens over here. I'm trying to stay organized. The first type of government that was recognizable in Greece was the monarchy. Can you see that? You might have to zoom in. The monarchy was all about having a king or queen. Okay, there's our king. We have still monarchs in the world today. So we have systems of government that are part monarchy, all monarchy. There's different levels of monarchy. Most of the time in ancient Greece, the monarchs were powerful families. And let me see, make sure I do this right. So the powers of the monarch is gained through inheritance. I'm going to stop this minute, check and make sure you can still hear me. All right, let's keep going. Monarchy, say it with me. Monarchy. Powers were gained through inheritance, meaning you were born into it. The king was succeeded by his oldest son, and then so on and so on. The length of rule was for life. You didn't ever get out of being the monarch, which meant that if you were a bad monarch, you might have to need someone to taste your food to make sure no one's poisoning it, or watch your back. All right? The political freedoms of the people were determined by the king. Okay? So the king was ruler over everything. He made all the decisions. People would come and plead with him, and people would try to bargain with him. But he always had the final say. Now, there were positives or pros about this kind of government. You had a group. The king usually had a group of people called the aristocrats. Oops. That would help the king rule. But negative would be sometimes the king had too many powers. Okay, so in some of the areas that he had powers were military, legal powers. He was also the judge. He made the laws. And he also was the head of the religion of the time. So you can see if one person was making decisions in all those areas, that was a lot of work. And it was a lot of power. He had a lot of say over people's lives. Okay, so there was one main way that the monarchy lost power and the way it went away in Greece. You know how they say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Well, it was often the aristocrats that were helping the king that eventually took over the government. So he could lose power by being overthrown by the aristocrats. All right, and that led to the next form of government, which is called oligarchy. Okay, say it with me, oligarchy. Oligarchy. Oligarchy was ruled by aristocrats. What are aristocrats? Aristocrats were very wealthy people. I'm doing really rough drafts here. Usually a group of some of the wealthiest people in the city who had a lot of money. Okay, that was their thing. They had a lot of money. They gained their power through overcoming or overthrowing the monarch. Hope you can see this, not just my back. Okay, so say aristocrats. 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 Starts with an A. Aristocrats. They ruled in an oligarchy type of government. Say oligarchy again. Oligarchy. Good. So the length of rule, basically, the oligarchy ruled until the people rebelled. When enough people were tired of the aristocrats, they took over. And they did it usually by military force. So a positive, though, was, oh wait, I forgot one part. And of course, the political freedom were determined by men in power. And the men were in power, but you can bet their wives had to whisper in their ear when they wanted something. So the positives about the oligarchy is because they were rich, they had lots of time. They didn't need a lot of help because they didn't have anything else to do. They were rich, right? They didn't have to go to a job every day. So they had lots of time. All right, I'm going to keep going. Now, how could they lose power? Oh, sorry, forgot the negative. This is hard here. The negatives of being in the oligarchy type of a government is that the aristocrats really only cared about themselves and getting richer off the people. So that led them to not be well liked by the people, and eventually people did rebel. All right. And like I said, they could lose power. Usually overthrown by military. So usually a military leaders would rise up, gather an army, and then go take over. Okay, sorry I'm getting messy here. All right, so it's a little messy. Sorry. I'll post the finished one when I'm done, and you can look at it how it looks typed up. All right, so we've got the monarchy that led to the oligarchy. Now we're going to talk about what happened next. When the military took over, usually one leader, one military leader would stand out, would take control. And oftentimes that person was just hungry for power and didn't have the needs of the people in mind. Okay, so this person is called, this type of government is called tyranny. We've used that word before because we've talked about some tyranny types of government in China and some other countries that we've studied. The tyranny is led by a tyrant. Say tyranny, tyranny. Say tyrant, tyrant. Okay, here's a tyrant. I'm not a very good drawer. You know how they wore all those robes in Egypt or in Greece? Okay, so that's a throne. He's holding a weapon or a scepter because he is glad to be in control over all the people. All right. So the tyranny, the tyrant, gained his power through force and by the military force. Oops. All right, the length of rule. As long as people were happy, he stayed in rule. So there became a pattern of tyrants doing what they wanted to do until people got so fed up, they gathered a different army and took over that tyrant. And then usually another tyrant would take the place. Okay, in this case, of course, the political freedoms of the people were determined by the tyrant. Okay, he was the boss, one boss, just like the monarch in some ways, but he had to continue to figure out how to keep power and make people happy or have so much control over them that it didn't matter if they were happy or not. He wasn't like he was born into it. He really had to work to be the leader. Okay, one of the positives about this was that some tyrants actually cared about the people and made good decisions for the country or the city-state. The negative, though, on the other hand, that's a good compare and contrast word, right? On the other hand, the tyrant, there are often many cruel tyrants and mean and selfish. Some tyrants were selfish and cruel. Anyway, try not to be. And they could easily lose power through being overthrown by another tyrant government. Okay. So at this point, Greece was really worried about what kind of government do we really want? And eventually they came to the point where they wanted to try something where no one person was in power. No one person was in charge. No one person had all the power. And so they decided to create what we now call a democracy. This was actually a direct democracy. In our government, we have, I tripped over the carpet, sorry. In our government, we have a representative democracy. But this was ruled by a group of people called the Assembly. They were voted. I'm not going to make a bunch of people, but here's their hands. They're voting. And there were lots of them. People felt like they had a say. All right. There's my democracy. And then headbands. Look like little Eggman. Oops. So through a democracy, power is gained by a vote of the people, of all the people. Now, typically through history, we've realized that all the people didn't really mean all the people, right? It meant men that own land or men that were citizens by some qualifications. It usually didn't mean women, and it definitely didn't mean slaves or children. The length of rule, until you were voted out, you got to rule. That could be a day or it could be 10 years. Your political freedoms. Determined by votes. Okay, they voted on everything. Which, in the positive aspect, meant that everyone felt like they had a say. Everyone felt they had a voice. That their opinion mattered, that there wasn't just one guy making all the decisions, that everybody had a say. A lot of debating going on in these assemblies, trying to get people to listen to your view and vote your way. So that's where we got a lot of that debating going on. Well, but a negative of that is, I'm sure you could guess, sometimes there were too many opinions and too many voices at a time. And of course, losing power then was only possible through a vote, by being voted out. All right, so we have 4 types of government. Say them with me. Monarchy, oligarchy, democracy, tyranny. We're going to talk a little bit more about democracy and how it relates to our government. Whereas they had direct democracy, we have representative democracy, where we vote for representatives to go and vote for us. So that's one of the differences. All right, we're going to review this another time. Thank you for joining me.